Next episode of Dinner Guide, I'm going to be focusing on some ingredients which are going to combine into one beautiful salad. I'm going to be focusing on rice, chicken and egg salad. My name is Chef Andy. Hello viewers and welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. On this particular episode, I'm going to be focusing on a very simple salad, of course a different salad based on a rice base. I'm going to be pairing that with some egg and some chicken, and last but not least an assortment of vegetables. But before we get that far, I will proceed to introduce the ingredients before us, just to give you an idea of what to expect. So from the very front, I've got 1 teaspoon of tomato paste. I've got a teaspoon of teriyaki sauce and a tablespoon of soy sauce. I've also got some dried mixed herbs. I've got a teaspoon of some chopped spring onion. I've also got about 7 pieces of cherry tomato, 1 teaspoon of paprika powder and some salt for seasoning. You're also going to require a stock cube, some peeled ginger. You'll also require some sesame oil and about 130 grams of chicken breast. You will also require 2 raw eggs, some finely chopped leeks, about half a cup of some white rice, basmati. You'll also require some fresh made veg stock and some tomato puree. You'll also require about half a cup of some frozen peas and half a cup of some chickpeas. And last but not least, some oil to cook with, some fresh peppercorns to crush, and last but not least, some water which we'll be cooking our rice in. But before we begin, we will allow you for this particular stage of the show to sit back, unwind, and we'll catch you in a very short while. See you in a little bit. Welcome back viewers. For those of you who are just catching up, we're right about ready to begin this very simple rice, chicken and vegetable salad. I'm going to start off the very simple process by cooking our rice. So to 1 pot you will add half a cup of rice, and you will also measure out about double the quantity water. So I'm just going to use the same cup. Once that is done, we're going to proceed to cook that on one side, just to get that off the way. Very important to mention when you're cooking rice, be very vigilant in remembering to season it. So I'm just going to season that with some salt. And of course, just to make sure that our rice is nice and fluffy and it's not sticky, we're going to add a small dash of some cooking oil, and that will actually allow for a nice, beautiful, velvety consistency. Now, next up, we're going to proceed to prepare the rest of our ingredients, which is basically going to be for the filling, or rather for the base of the salad. So we're going to start off very simply by heating up a pan. You can, of course, at this stage use a non-stick pan or any particular frying pan of your choice. And we will begin this very simple process by cubing our chicken. So I'm going to be chopping this into some nice small cubes of about 1/2 inch in size. And for this particular recipe, I decided to go with some boneless chicken. You are welcome to debone some chicken legs if you prefer. They do actually come to a very much significantly lower cost. But remember, for us particularly, if you're making salad, you may want to remember that you may not want to have some of those chicken bones in there. So some boneless chicken will do. And for those of you who are strict vegetarians, you can of course omit using the chicken, and you can of course go with a vegetable variety. Right, so once your chicken's cubed, proceed to drizzle some oil on a pan and proceed to add your chicken. Now this we're going to be browning on a hot pan very, very quickly. Very important to mention as well, when working with raw meat, be sure to not contaminate your working surface or any of your ingredients by of course turning your board around. And we'll just proceed to brown the chicken at this stage. Now this should take you anywhere between 6 to 7 minutes. Of course, browning your chicken at high heat. And of course, also very important to mention, always gives it a bit of an advantage when you mix your chicken while it browns. This of course allows for you to get a nice even color right through. Right, so as our chicken proceeds, I'm going to proceed also to grate up some of this ginger root. So you're looking for about a teaspoon of some grated ginger. And very important to mention, you may want to peel your ginger at this a little earlier in time. Remember, the skin of the ginger root does give it a bit of bitterness, which is one particular part of the dish, or rather part of your taste buds, that you don't really want to experience this with. So be sure to peel your ginger in good time. This should make it a little easier for you to grate it as soon as you need to use it. So just to bring your attention back to the chicken. Nice, beautiful color coming through there. And the chicken pieces will of course begin to start to shrink. So this is particularly also another point to pay attention to. Remember, you may actually want to find a nice, beautiful, even size that will actually shrink evenly. Should actually be a nice, beautiful bite size. And of course somewhat a particular texture that should be almost the size of your vegetables that you'll be incorporating. So for this, I'm going to be using some frozen peas and some chickpeas. So you should actually be looking at chopping up your chicken to somewhat that same size. Proceed to fry completely. And at this stage, you can proceed to lower your temperature to medium. And we're going to use a bit of stock to deglaze the pan. And one particular advantage of using some stock, it always adds a bit of nutrition and a bit of flavor. And of course, by deglazing your pan with some liquid, will of course allow for your chicken to cook right through. And you can now proceed to turn up your heat a little higher and proceed to continue mixing up your chicken in the pan right up until the liquid is completely consumed. Now at this stage, we're going to grab a plate where we're going to rest our chicken very, very slightly. Right, so your first part of the cooking process is now complete. So all you're going to do is proceed to rest your chicken on a plate on the side. And we'll proceed to return the pan back to the heat, beginning once more by adding just a little bit of oil. And we will begin our cooking process by adding our ginger. We'll also proceed to add our leeks. We'll add in our spring onion. And we're basically going to allow that to sweat out for just a little bit. Of course, I'm going to be cooking that at medium to low heat. This should allow for you to get a nice, beautiful aroma from the onions. And of course, also making sure to not color them a bit too quickly, giving it a horrible bitter flavor. Once that is done, we're going to proceed to add our tomato paste. We're also going to be adding in our stock cube. And now at this stage, your rice is now fully cooked. We're going to proceed to turn that off and allow that to cool off on the side. Remember, we are going to be mixing this in a little later. Proceed to fry up your onions with that beautiful tomato paste. And of course, use your spoon of choice to break up the stock cube. Now at this stage, your pan will begin to dry up quite a little bit. We are now going to proceed to add our peas and our chickpeas. And we're going to proceed to toss that in the pan. And of course, proceed to add a little bit of your stock. And we're also going to be adding, so in the glass here, I've got about 3 large tomatoes that have just been blended up in a blender. We're going to proceed to add about half of that. And the nice, beautiful acid from the tomatoes will, of course, proceed to tenderize and soften up those peas, giving it a nice, beautiful flavor. And of course, combining all those ingredients in the pan to give a nice, beautiful finish to the mixture. And now this is now cooking at high heat. So we're going to allow that to continue simmering for anywhere between 3 to 4 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to also proceed to grab some of your other ingredients, and we'll also proceed to slice up our cherry tomatoes into halves. Now this we're going to basically be using to add into the salad a little later. We're just basically going to mix that up. You can move those into a small bowl and set those aside for later. We are also going to be incorporating some of these other ingredients as we proceed, but before we do so, very importantly, to check on the rice. So we're going to begin by moving our pot right onto our board here, and using a pasta slotted spoon, I'm going to just fluff up the rice. So this is now nicely, beautifully cooked. It still has a nice, beautiful bite to it as well. Once that's done, we're going to proceed to move that into a bowl. So I'm just quickly going to grab a spoon, and we're going to spoon our rice mixture into a bowl. This will allow for the rice to cool off a little faster, making it, of course, ready to mix up into the salad a little later. Right, now at this stage your rice is already done. We've of course got our chickpeas and our peas now nicely cooked through. That beautiful tomato is now reducing, giving it a nice beautiful thickness. And at this stage we're going to proceed to season with some salt. Tiny dash of some paprika powder. This will actually bring up a bit of heat. And of course our mixed herbs. And remember, as I mentioned, while you're making salad, very important to make sure to keep your mixture as dry as possible. This will of course avoid for you to have a soggy salad. And to that, proceed to add your chicken and mix through once more. And at this stage, you can turn off your heat completely. Proceed to mix through. And now you can just pour that onto a plate. Remember, moving it onto a plate will allow for your mixture to cool off much faster and avoid any more cooking of your meal. Right, so we've got two of our ingredients now complete. We've got this beautiful chicken, chickpea and pea mixture. We've got our rice. We are going to finish this dish off very, very simply by mixing all the ingredients together. But before we get to that part, I will allow this to cool off, giving me quite a bit of free time to get this station cleaned up, giving you also a break to just take up a bit of time and stretch out and unwind. And when we do come back, I'll take you through the last and final step, which is the plating and of course the completion of this very simple salad. But don't touch that dial. We'll see you in a little bit. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just catching up, we're just getting to the last and final part of this process. So we're going to begin the very, very simple process of plating this by turning up some heat on our pan, and that we're going to be cooking a sunny side up egg very briefly. But while we allow that some time to heat up, I'm going to proceed to mix our ingredients for the salad, beginning with our cooled off rice. And also add in our chicken mixture. All right, now to that, proceed to mix everything together. And as I mentioned, it is a very, very different kind of salad. I have, of course, done this a lot of times when you're basically sitting at home and thinking of something that will combine into a nice hearty meal. And you're probably not looking at having something that's more vegetarian, not too saucy, and very, very simple to make. This, of course, is a very good option. You can also alternate the rice by using couscous. You can also use pasta. It will also give you a nice, beautiful mixture all together. All right, so chicken mixture is done. To that, I'll be seasoning that very, very lightly with about 2 teaspoons of some soy sauce. I'm using mushroom infused soy sauce for this recipe. I'll also add 2 teaspoons of teriyaki sauce. And I'll also add a teaspoon of some sesame oil. And these are all basically going to add a nice, beautiful richness to the dish. Proceed to mix that through once more. And once that's mixed through, we're going to proceed to pour out the mixture into our salad bowl. And as I mentioned, be very wary to make sure that your rice doesn't overcook. You can also alternatively use some leftover rice in your refrigerator. Maybe you had some guests over this particular Easter weekend. Maybe you had some meat that was left over from the barbecue. Those are particularly very, very good alternatives to using raw chicken or some freshly cooked rice. Right, so proceed to fill up your bowl, adding all of your mixture into your salad bowl. And you can proceed to leave that on the side. And now, just to bring you back to the pan, proceed to add a small dash of oil. And we're basically going to cook just one piece of egg for this particular dish. Proceed to add your egg onto the pan. And we're basically just going to be cooking that sunny side. So you can tilt your pan a little bit, allowing your egg yolk to spread more evenly on the surface of your pan. And of course, very, very importantly, always remember to season your egg. A bit of some crushed black pepper. And now, while that continues, I'm also going to be adding in my cherry tomatoes. Remember, these are always a nice, beautiful addition to any dish. They add a nice, beautiful sweetness to it. The juices also contain a nice, beautiful kick of acid that will actually also help to refresh your salad. So just sprinkle those all around your bowl. And the last and final step of the process will basically just be to add your egg right over. So we're just going to allow that to cook a little further. But just probably to share some other tips with the dish, a good infusion of some sesame oil always brings a nice, beautiful flavor. You can, of course, also purchase this and use it to cook, but I particularly like to use it for that beautiful sesame kick to it. It does also give a nice, beautiful balance of the teriyaki and the soy sauce, of course, averaging that beautiful acidity with the tomato, giving you a nice, beautiful, humble dish. And as another thing to mention as well, when you're cooking your chicken, you can also alternatively grill your chicken and slice it up. You can also mix that into the same mixture. It will also give it a nice, beautiful difference in texture. Right, so our egg is done. All you need to do at this stage is proceed to lift that very, very gently off your pan and proceed to place that right over your bowl. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my very simple take on a rice salad with chicken, vegetables, and a touch of a fried egg. I hope you've managed to enjoy yourselves today. I definitely have enjoyed myself. If you do have any questions, queries, or any particular comments that could help us to do a little better on the show, please always remember to write back to us through our Facebook page. That's BrandPlus TV. And of course, if you're looking at some new ideas to improve your kitchen or say your cooking touch in your kitchen at home, you can also tune into our YouTube page, which has a lot of content that you can be able to brush up with. But for this, I'm going to bid you farewell, wishing you a lovely evening, a beautiful Easter weekend, and for those of you who are on holiday, a lovely holiday as well. And until the next episode, God bless you. See you soon.